we get into the presentation. There's a couple buttons on the webinar pane next to your name. If you notice, there's a hand button and there's a question mark button. Should you have a question throughout the presentation, we just encourage you to go ahead and click on that question mark button, and a dialog box will open up. And we just ask that you key in your question in that dialog box, and at the end of the presentation, we will announce the questions for the presenters and make sure everybody gets their questions answered. We are recording this webinar, and we will be posting it to ERPVAR's YouTube channel and APS as well. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. We know that an hour of your time is hard to come by, and we just really appreciate you spending it with us on this Friday morning or afternoon, depending where you're at. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and let Patty get started. Patty's going to kick it off, and then we're going to talk a little bit with Bryce, and then we're going to wrap things up with Phil. So Patty, thank you so much.
Thank you, Adrian. And thanks to everyone that's joined us this afternoon or this morning. As Adrian said, we truly value the opportunity to be able to provide you with information regarding not only the PCCharge end of life, but also alternatives that you should be aware of and just guide you in the right direction when it comes time to decide which credit card processing company to switch to. And again, Adrian mentioned Bryce and Phil will also be joining us for today. Let's jump right into the agenda, and we'll talk about American Payment Solutions, a quick introduction. We're going to make it as painless as possible. PCI DSS 101. Many people don't know what the acronym stands for, and we just want to make sure that everyone understands exactly what they stand for and how it will affect your company. We will talk about security requirements as well as EMV. We would like to know and help you find out if you're liable or compliant. The PCI DSS Compliance and how American Payment Solutions will help you get there. We will also go through a brief competitive comparison. As I mentioned before, we want to make sure that you understand what to look out for, what things to ask for when you're making a decision as far as your credit card processing company. The 10 things you should know, the 10 most important things you should be asking. We will then jump into a Sage 100 integration presentation, talk a little bit about the process with American Payment Solutions, and of course we'll be happy to take questions. If we're not able to address any questions during the presentation, we'll be happy to take them offline. Before we begin, and before I hand it over to Bryce, I have a really bad reputation with the Sage channel, and I have to live up to it now. So just to lighten up the atmosphere, have to tell you a really quick joke, and I hope you enjoy it. I didn't so much. It's a true story. My husband and I had our 25th anniversary, and we were on vacation. Well, we lost our credit card. A month later, I noticed that we're getting bills, and I said, hey, wait a minute, you didn't report the card stolen, and I'm freaking out. And he said, well, you know what I've noticed is that whoever stole the cards is spending much less than you were. True story, folks. I had to literally make the calls myself. So just wanted to let you know, be careful with those cards, be careful with those hackers, be careful with everything, because your better half or your other half might just like it. And with that, Bryce, sorry about the cheesy joke. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thanks, Patty. So, like Patty said, we're going to start with just a little bit of introduction about who we are, American Payment Solutions. My name is Bryce Deeney. I help manage our ERP Solutions team here at the corporate office in Phoenix, Arizona. But we are dedicated credit card processor. This is what we do. It's our bread and butter. We don't really do anything else. We do have over 250 software/shopping cart integrations that we've built throughout the 11 years we've been in business. We do have an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. And something a little unique about us, our CEO, David Ford, was actually one of the 5 founders of Sage Payment Solutions back in the day. So we didn't come into the Sage world unannounced. We definitely knew the Sage world just as well as Sage did at the time, because we kind of were Sage when we created American Payment Solutions. You can see on the bottom, we've hired industry experts from a lot of the global processors out there. Obviously, by our name, you know, we are just in North America and the United States and Canada. But we are growing very fast right now, and you can see that we've hired some of the people from our direct competitors like Sage Payment Solutions and WorldPay and Wells Fargo, but TSYS is a really close company to ours. They're actually here in Tempe as well, and we've hired some of their industry experts as well. And on the left side, you can see we're not exclusive to Sage as far as what we integrate into. We do have integrations into many other ERP platforms. You can see a few of them listed on the left side of the screen, but if you are considering another one or another part of your organization uses a different ERP system and you'd like to consolidate your credit card processing into one company, let us know. We probably already integrate into what you use outside of Sage. So with that said, PCI compliance, I know this is a huge talking point right now in our industry. Many merchants know about it. They know it's something that is very important to their company, but maybe they've just been left in the dark a little bit from either their current processor or whoever it is that's advising you. Maybe it's a third-party company or processor uses. So that's why we're here today, to help you out. So PCI compliance, it's technically payment card industry standard, data security standard. That's what the DSS stands for. It's the insurance policy in our world, in the credit card processing world. And you can see a couple footnotes here of the history. You can literally pull this off the Wikipedia site, but the reality is PCI compliance is there to help make sure we have a standardized effort to stop fraud, credit card fraud in particular, in the United States. I believe the last report I saw was about 60% of the worldwide credit card fraud actually happens here in the United States. So it's a big issue. It's really twofold. One is EMV compliance, the new chips that are in all the credit cards and debit cards that's coming out. Many of you probably have already received a new card to activate from your bank with the chip in it. And the second part is, how do you make your software or point of sale compliant? And that's really what I'm about to go into here. So here's the PCI framework. We did break it down into 6 categories just to make it a little bit more simple, more of a 30,000-foot overview for everybody attending here. And just keep in mind, if you want more information than this, we're happy to provide it to you. You will have our contact information after this, and you can reach out to us and we can talk to you about PCI compliance and actually what it means to your business in particular. But the first thing is you have to build and maintain a secure network. If you don't build it, you have to use somebody else's. So what this means is you have to have a firewall configured to protect data so nobody can hack into your system or your software and be able to steal the actual credit card data. And there's ways around that, like tokenization, utilizing a vault, and we're going to cover that here in a minute. The second way is protecting the credit card data, encrypting it. Third way is maintaining a vulnerability management program, basically antivirus software, making sure it's up to date. And a lot of this is really more for the CTO or the IT, head of IT. Typically those are the departments that handle this portion of the credit card data. We always walk through with our merchants to make sure that they're set up correctly. And you're going to see what fees are associated with this, with us versus our competitors here shortly. And lastly, here's the last 3 parts of the security requirements for PCI compliance. You do have to implement a strong access control measure. Basically, you have to restrict access to data by business need to know, meaning somebody can't jump into your system, your ERP system, or your virtual terminal that maybe you use for reporting and be able to access all the data. It needs to be need to know at a company level. Also, assigning a unique ID to each person who does have computer access, basically having security measurements depending on what you want to provide your individual employees to make sure that all 300 people in your organization, as an example, don't have access to everything. And restricting physical access to cardholder data. This has kind of been a funny thing for me because I've only been in the industry, 4 or 5 years, but back in the day, I know everybody used the knuckle busters, right? So you would literally take an imprint of the card, throw it in the back of your truck, drive back to your office if let's say you're at a trade show, and then manually enter the credit card into the terminal. Technically, you're kind of breaking all sorts of rules now when you do that, because you're having a imprint of a card, and you're not keeping that in a secure environment, like literally a vault, a real vault. So the industry has changed when it comes to that. The fifth one is regularly monitoring and testing your networks. So your credit card processor or the third-party company that they use for PCI compliance is supposed to be pinging your IP to make sure that it's secure. They're testing the network to make sure it's secure. It's supposed to be done minimum once a quarter. So your current processor, if you are processing credit cards today, should already be doing that. And if they're not, obviously that needs to change. The sixth is just maintaining the information security policy. At a company-wide level, the larger you get, the more enterprise you become. PCI compliance does become a little bit more strict, and make sure you're using a processor who can grow with you in that environment, and make sure that as your company grows, that you're establishing principles and procedures that match what Visa and MasterCard require for you to be able to process credit cards. So, like I said, it's twofold. We just covered the internet side of things as far as how to protect your databases and your IP. The second portion is actually a card present transaction, meaning you're not keying it in, you're actually swiping it. Well, we don't use the term swipe anymore. Now you're literally inserting the card. I'm sure many of you have already experienced this. Our friends up in Canada, this is the standard already. It's already the standard in Europe and Asia, Australia, South America. America is kind of late to the game, but as of October 1st, it's now the new standard for American merchants and American card holders. So EMV is Euro MasterCard Visa. It's literally the chip that's inside of the card. So rather than the card data being stored on the mag strip on the back of the card, now it's stored inside of the chip. So if you try to swipe an EMV capable credit card beyond October 1st, it's not going to work. They're going to ask you to actually insert it into your terminal. And if you don't have a terminal that accepts EMV, you now have to key it in, which, as most merchants know, when you're keying into a transaction, the rate, the hard cost, the interchange, is actually quite a bit higher versus when you're swiping or inserting the card for a chip card. So you want to make sure that you're using an EMV compliant card from a rate perspective. And obviously the most important thing is the fact that you're going to be compliant. So if you don't have EMV capabilities come October 1st and your clients are coming to you with an EMV card, they literally can push forward a chargeback, and there's nothing you can really do about it because you aren't set up to Visa and MasterCard's new standards in the United States. So you don't have any ability to fight that chargeback because you're out of compliance when it comes to EMV at that point. So make sure that you're using an EMV chip card reader. If you don't have one right now, or if you're not sure, let us know. You can give us the serial number or the model number of your actual terminal. We'll let you know if it's EMV compliant. But we are shipping EMV compliant terminals to all of our merchants. We've been doing that for about 6 months now. So,
thank you, Bryce. That was great information. Just to add a little bit to the different compliance requirements and why they're absolutely necessary, I just wanted to bring a little bit of information to you. We've all heard about some of the most recent or largest breaches, which are with Target, for example, or Adobe and TJ Maxx, Sally Beauty Supplies. This is something that we definitely don't want to let hackers get to in our company. Cyber thieves are always on the lookout for merchants who have hung up a virtual shingle but have let their risk management guard down. And that's where American Payment Solutions comes to play, because you're dealing with the industry experts. We know exactly what's going on, not only with PCI compliance, but with credit card processing in general. So if there is anything there that you should know about credit card processing and compliance security, you can definitely count on us to provide you with assistance. We know it's up to you to understand PCI compliance, and of course, By then, you're supposed to be able to take a strategic approach to proactively address compliance issues and position your business for success. Let us hold your hand and walk you through the process, and we'll make sure that you do stay and continue to be PCI compliant. APS will help you meet PCI and EMV compliance requirements. Keep that in mind. We actually have a team that's focused on contacting our merchants on an annual basis to help them stay compliant by walking them through the annual assessment questionnaire. This questionnaire is required of all merchants, regardless of the level. You must not have any no answers, for example, otherwise it'll fail. And just remember, we do this with all of our merchants, so we know exactly how to help you pass this assessment test. It applies to both technical and the business aspect. So whenever a situation does arise, because we have so many merchants and so much experience working with them, we're able to give you ideas as far as how to resolve any of these issues. Also, with security vulnerability scan on a quarterly basis, we provide assistance with that and this is required for all external facing IP addresses, for example, any web applications. And now that I'm talking about web applications, I also want to address the fact that it's required for point-of-sale software, including ERP and databases on the network. American Payment Solutions integrates with iPad point-of-sale solutions. I just want to mention that. And one of the things that we didn't mention also with the integration is the fact that we integrate, for example, with Website Pipeline, Magento, InSync, and many other third-party products out there. Again, even with that type of integration, we provide you with the assistance in obtaining the security level that you should have in order to continue to be PCI compliant. And as you know, proper security enables a company to meet its business objectives by providing a safe and secure environment, and that helps avoid, of course, loss of revenue, loss or compromise of data, interruption of business processes. You don't want to deal with the legal consequences, of course. If any of that happens, you would damage the confidence that your customers have in you, and not only that, but damage your reputation. So again, I want to reiterate, please consider us a partner when it comes to providing you with assistance in PCI compliance. And all of this, of course, would be done at no charge.
Thanks, Patty. So we wanted to show everybody a little comparison chart that goes through our fees as far as setting up a merchant account and holding a merchant account at APS versus some of our competition that also integrates within Sage 100. So our hard cost is $15 a month, meaning if you have the top line on the right, the pricing structure, we endorse and we make sure merchants understand the differences between the few different ways of pricing. So many of you know there's, as one example, Square is for, mom and pop shops or even like lawnmowers or maintenance, sole proprietor contractors. They charge a flat fee, typically anywhere from like 2.75 to 3.5% per transaction. Other processors actually do more of a variable on that. It's called a 3-tier system, to where you have a fully qualified, mid-qualified, non-qualified transactions. We prefer Interchange Plus as the most transparent way to price a merchant. Any of you who are sitting here on this webinar, if you have 5 minutes in the next couple weeks, just go to Google and Google 3-tier versus Interchange Plus. I promise you, you're going to find hundreds, if not thousands, of articles that talk about the difference. And you're not going to find one that says for a small, medium, or large size company, especially manufacturers, distributors, or wholesalers, Interchange Plus is the way to go. The other ways of getting priced do not make sense for anybody running more than $10,000 a month in credit cards. And obviously there's people here that process a lot more than that. And we want to make sure you understand that way you're priced competitively and you're lowering your effective rate or your total bill. So the second thing about APS is we are really, really strong with our level 3 integrations with all of the ERP systems we implement within. So inside of Sage 100, and Phil is going to show us this here pretty soon, but within Sage 100, we do level 3 processing completely integrated, and it's in the background. You don't even know it's happening once it's set up at the company level. And really quick overview, level 3 processing is a discount in the interchange fee from MasterCard and Visa when you're doing a business-to-business type transaction or business-to-government. So again, if you're a wholesaler, manufacturer, distributor, if you're dealing with other companies and they're paying you with their corporate cards, typically you're going to pay 2.4 to 3% for the hard cost for the interchange for those transactions. Where if you're putting that same exact card through a level 3 gateway, you actually get it down to 1.85% for that same exact card. And that's actually where it starts. You can get as low as 0.5%. I believe it's actually 0.4% is currently the lowest on very large ticket transactions. So we have a few merchants who do have $1 million single transactions that are $1 million plus, and we're saving them thousands of dollars each transaction because of level 3 processing. So we do have level 3 processing. It's fully integrated on versions 2013, 14, and 15 on Sage 100. Obviously, when 2016 comes out, we'll have it there as well. But if you want to learn more about that, or if you do fall into that category and you think you could benefit from that, we'd be happy to walk you through an analysis and show you what that means. Quick note on that, PCCharge does not have level 3 processing. That program literally didn't exist from Visa MasterCard when PCCharge was new or even when it was old. Level 3 processing has only been around for a few years. So if you are a PCCharge end user, we know you're not receiving level 3 rates right now. We'd be happy to talk to you about it, look at a comparison, and make sure that you're taking advantage of those savings. Next, we have chargeback assistance. We do it at no cost. We assist our merchants with chargeback issues. We want to make sure that you're mitigating and lowering your chargeback risk, and also making sure that you're setting yourself up to win when people do try to take advantage of you for chargebacks. So that kind of goes with the EMV compliance, PCI compliance, but also making sure that your refund and return policies are correctly labeled on your website, on your invoices. We will help you with that to make sure that chargebacks don't become a pain in the neck for your company. So then there's a few fees here. One's the gateway fee. We charge $5. That's in the integrated cost on the left side where it shows $15 a month. Our competitors charge anywhere from $5 to $20 a month for the gateway. And really all they're doing is they're looking at your existing statement from your current processor and then matching or maybe lowering a little bit, where ours is shown to you up front. This is the hard cost. So this next part is pretty big. So PCI Compliance. So our ERP integrated merchants use a PCI Compliant gateway. That's our gateway that we've built into the ERP system. So your system that you'd be running with APS is PCI compliant, meaning the credit cards are tokenized, they're stored in a vault, and you're going to see that here in the demo shortly. But we also walk you through the self-assessment questionnaire, which Patty was talking about, and we do that at no charge. We do not charge annually or monthly for PCI compliance assistance at all. Where our competitors typically will charge $75 annually, $35 a month for PCI non-compliance because they didn't walk you through that self-assessment questionnaire on day one. And to top it off, we actually do PCI compliance in-house. So we have a team dedicated to PCI compliance here at APS, where the majority of our competitors actually don't do PCI compliance at all. They outsource that. The big one in the United States is called TrustWave. I'm sure many of you, if you've ever had to fill out that self-assessment questionnaire, you've probably been redirected from your current processor to a company like TrustWave or another company similar. So it just seems like there's a bit of a disconnect, lack of communication, and that's why so many companies fail the self-assessment questionnaire, because they don't really have somebody at their processor level who's helping them walk through that. So there's two more items here. One is the integration fee. So we do not charge for implementation. There's no module fee. There's nothing. We also don't charge ongoing There's no annual fee or upgrade fees, and there's also no integration fee. Our competition also offers no module fee and no annual fee associated with the integration, but they actually do charge a monthly fee, and it's based on your credit card volume. It's actually 5 basis points or 0.05% multiplied by your total credit card volume for the month. So if you did $1 million through Sage 100 as an example, you would be billed $500 for that single line item on your merchant statement. So as you can see, that definitely adds up over time, and the larger you get, the more you pay for that integration. So this next part, I know it's a big deal to a lot of companies. Many people actually use PCCharge because maybe they're with their bank and their bank offered them next day funding. And when they looked at the go-to solution for Sage 100 credit card processing, they didn't have next day funding for you. They have two-day business funding for your batches, where we at APS do offer next day funding at no charge to our merchants. So the cutoff time is 9 p.m. Eastern time. The money hits your account the following morning at 8 a.m. as long as it's a business day. That's very crucial to a lot of companies, especially if your AR is getting a little out of control. You want to make sure that you have the money flowing in for all the items or the goods that you're shipping out. We know that this is important, and we offer it at no cost. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Patty, and then after Patty, it's going to be Phil.
Thank you. I'm going to be really brief. We mentioned that we would be discussing not only PCCharge and becoming PCI compliant, but what exactly was next after PCCharge. And one of the major reasons for this presentation is to be able to offer you options. We know that American Payment Solutions is not perfect for everyone, so we wanted to let you know what's important to ask and look out for when you are looking for a credit card processor. Bryce went through several of these points. For example, he spoke to you about the pricing models and comparing Interchange Plus to the tiered type of models. He explained that Interchange Plus is transparent. It's a standard model that we prefer to use internally. And for more information, let us know. We'd be happy to talk about it. But just keep in mind, when you're looking for a processor, find out if they use Interchange Plus or if they use a tiered model. The seamless integration, of course, you want to make sure that they fully integrate with your ERP system. Currently, we're talking about Sage 100, which is what we're going to present next. But as we mentioned before, we also integrate with several other ERP systems. The PCI compliance, without a doubt, is something you have to make sure the processor will provide assistance with. Again, American Payment Solutions will provide assistance at absolutely no charge to you. The level 3 processing that Bryce briefly spoke about, one of the things to keep in mind and ask the processor, first of all, if they offer level 3 processing, and if so, how is level 3 processing handled within your ERP system? American Payment Solutions will automate the process for you, autofilling the required fields from Visa and MasterCard. Other processors will require you to type them in manually, and it's a considerable amount of fields. The data migration, very important. There are processors who say that they will help you with the migration, meaning they will help you manually type in the information to your new system. We have migration from Sage Payment Solutions and PCCharge. You won't have to key in the data manually at all. First, can you go to the next slide for me, please? Next day funding for East Coast customers, it actually becomes 12-hour funding. So, for example, on the East Coast, and you can change it to your time zone, if you batch by 8:45 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern, you should have the funds available the next morning at 8 a.m. So technically, it's right around the 12-hour next day funding. Your point of contact, very crucial. You always want to make sure that you have someone, a human being, to speak with when you have any questions, not just issues, but questions. We guarantee at American Payment Solutions, you will always have a human being answering the phone, and if they can't help, they will definitely direct you to the appropriate person that will be able to assist with any questions you may run into. The American Express rates, Bryce also mentioned those. Make sure you ask your processor, what what level of rates they're offering for American Express. We have a special contract with American Express, which in this case would be allowing us to provide you with a lower rate. And the rate, of course, depends on, once we evaluate your current merchant statement, we can talk about specific rates for you. Early termination fees, this is a very important question. So, for example, with American Payment Solutions, we will not charge early termination fees so long as you give us the opportunity to match or beat any competitor that you're trying to switch to. That is it. If you go out of business, if for some reason we weren't able to match the other processor, there will be no cancellation fee or early termination fee. And on the other side, we are more than happy to look into paying for early termination fees should you decide to switch from your current processor over to American Payment Solutions. There is absolutely no charge for the credit card processing module or the equipment. So this is also very important. Some processors will charge you or lease the equipment, and they will charge a module fee. With American Payment Solutions, you will pay nothing for the module, nothing for the equipment, and we also provide installation, implementation, and training at absolutely no charge to you. So these are questions that you should definitely keep in mind and make sure to ask any processor that you're researching or plan to switch to. And with that, I hope I try to make it as brief as possible so we can jump right into the presentation with Phil.
Excellent. Now, hopefully I will be able to show you my screen. My name's Phil Worley, and I'm going to try to get the correct screen up here so that you can see it. There. Now, are you able to see my screen now?
I see the APS portal.
Excellent. That's what's on my screen. So my name is Phil, and I guess you could call me the architect. I'm the product manager of the Sage 100 ERP American Payment Solutions integration. So I can speak to why we designed it the way it is and what it does. So I'm going to do a relatively quick overview. I used to be somewhat amused when someone asked for an integration, for a demonstration of the APS integration. If you're familiar with Sage 100 and you're already using one of the more recent Sage 100 versions and you're already processing credit cards, you could be on an APS integrated system and not even know it, because one of our main criteria in designing the interface was to not make it change much, make it as seamless as possible. So when you're processing credit cards, your users generally do not even know that they're using APS. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you what's different in a nutshell, and then we're going to actually go through the process and touch on the gateway, the APS secure gateway, which is available to you to manage your credit card merchant accounts. So to begin with, when you install the APS integration, which is provided for you as part of your contract with APS, you'll get a new menu option. And most Sage business partners find this extremely easy to do. You install APS, you activate your credit cards in your company maintenance, and then it will pull over all of the cards that were already there. If you're coming, say, from an older system into one of the newer systems, it'll pull the cards out of your files and move them to the APS Vault. It is critical to understand that all of the credit card information is now stored in a vault. It's not stored on your local machine, and that makes it a lot easier to comply with the PCI DSS regulations. In company maintenance, this is one of the places where there are differences. If I pull up a company that has a credit card turned on, you'll see that there's a new place here, APS Vault. See where I'm clicking there, APS Vault information. That's where I put in the merchant ID and the merchant password, which APS provides. That is the secure method for getting into the APS gateway. Once that's done, and we can come back and talk about the level 3 information a little bit later, once that's done, I'm effectively set up. Other places where we'll see a difference in payment type maintenance. Now what I'm showing here is standard Sage 100, or for those of you on older versions, MAS 90 or MAS 200. These are standard menu options in the Sage 100 product. In payment type maintenance, down at the bottom, you'll see that we have a new section for APS processing settings. So instead of providing a merchant account for Sage Payment Solutions, you provide a merchant account for APS instead. It validates that merchant account, makes sure that it's a good one, and then allows you to accept it. Now, those payment types are automatically, when you convert from an older version, your existing payment types, if they have Sage Payment Solutions credentials in there, you'll provide at the time of conversion your APS credentials, and that's what it uses. It will use the SPS Solutions credentials to go grab existing credit card information out of there and put them into the APS Vault. They will not come into your files if you're on, say, version 2013 or 2014, and you go with, you move from SPS to APS. All of that credit card information is converted for you into the APS Vault. And then if you set up new payment types, you can enter in your merchant ID and password for the payment type, and from then on, it knows how to get access to that information in token form, and it never brings the card information back. So card numbers never come back onto your computer. That's a fairly important feature that you want to always look for. So let's look at some of the other things having to do with just general processing. If you're on old versions, some of this may look a little different, but from about version 2013 on, this is what it's going to look like. I'm in customer maintenance now, and on the additional panel, you've got a button for credit cards, and right here I'm going to add a new credit card just so that you can see what it looks like. This is going to be called my demo credit card. I'm sorry. Let's try using the correct payment type, and I'm just going to use a card ID of demo, and I'm going to tell it to add a new card, and then I'm going to put in my card number. Now, notice something about this screen here. It says APS Pays Integrated Solutions. The screen that I'm typing my card number in is not part of the Sage 100 system. It is not storing anything in the Sage 100 tables. So I've typed my dummy card number in. I would have typed my real one, but I know somebody would have copied it down, and that would not be PCI compliant. So as I'm typing this in, it is actually sending it directly to the vault. When I say submit, it sends it directly to the vault, and the vault doesn't like it. So it's validated immediately at that point. But the point here is that when I send it in, it is never going into your local files onto your local computer. If I were to swipe a card, when I'm actually doing a transaction, if I were to swipe a card, it would take this information directly off of either the Stripe or the EMV chip, send it directly to the vault for transaction processing, and then what comes back to me is just token information. So from then on, I refer to that card as card 1. I don't ever have to remember a token. I don't have to remember the card number, just my local name that I gave that card. In the vault, it has the full card information, but I don't need that for my processing purposes. So the next thing that I'll look at is the actual processing of a card in sales order. And again, if you're familiar with Sage 100, you've seen this many times before. But I have a sales order already set up and ready to go. I said I knew my way around, but sometimes I wonder. Does this all look familiar? I hope so. So in version 2013, 2014, and 2015, and I'm demonstrating on version 2015, which is the latest released version. On the totals panel, I would tell it that I'm going to use a credit card. It finds that customer's default credit card. Now, I could enter a new credit card here if I wanted to, and I would get that same pop-up screen that you saw before. But in this case, I've got my default credit card pulled in from the customer. I'm going to do a pre-authorization. I've entered in my corporate PO number if I want to do level 3 processing. And when I click accept, unless I have chosen to process in batch later, it will try to submit the card for pre-authorization immediately. So I click this, it pops up again. This is an APS screen, this is not a Sage screen. I'm typing in information that's going to be sent directly to the APS Vault. And it processes that card. Now, if I were to pull that one back up again, that same order back up again, it warns me that there's been a pre-authorization done, and I can see the transaction ID. So again, this is all standard Sage 100 processing. Nothing, everything that is APS is either in that one screen that popped up that said APS pays at the top, or behind the scenes. Now let's take a look at the vault, at the gateway, which is the way that you can manage your merchant account. I'm not going to go into detail about the use of the APS gateway, but what I do want to show is the immediate impact of what I just did. So I'm going to run a transaction report starting from September 1st through September 25th, today's date. And when I submit, you'll see that I have one card. It's pending capture, means it's been pre-authorized. I can drill into that card and I can see the details about that card. One of the things that I want to show you, which we'll get into a little bit more detail later, but while I've got the transaction up on the screen, you will notice that I have that corporate PO number, or that corporate ID, and look here, this is the detail of what I sold. So when I do this, whether I do the pre-authorization through a sales order or through a cash receipt, the APS integration goes out and grabs the detail items that you're selling with this transaction, and it sends them to the processor. And this is important because that's part of level 3 qualification. So this card right here will qualify for the level 3 rate. But if you think about it, you didn't see me do anything different. It was automatic because of the way I had it set up. I sound like a salesperson, don't I? I'm not. I'm a developer. So there's my sales order. I'm going to go and create an invoice very quickly. This is a process that you all should be very familiar with, so I won't waste a lot of time talking about it. We'll create a new invoice. We'll reference that sales order number. Ship all the lines on there, and you'll notice that it, of course, knows that that credit card has already been authorized. And then the next step, you have a couple of ways that you can do the pre-authorizations and the capture. Most of the time, the actual capture, which is where you finalize that transaction, is done in the daily sales report. You'll see that there's a checkbox right there. So we have this one invoice out there. The credit card has been pre-authorized, but it has not been captured yet. When I run the sales journal, it actually goes out to the gateway with that transaction, with that transaction ID that I had, and it does the capture. So now that particular transaction, and there's the transaction with that credit card, I can go ahead and update now. And so just to sort of close the loop, I'm going to go back over here to my reports. Same date range, submit, and now you'll see that I've got a card authorization and a card capture. I can still drill into there, and the reporting from the gateway is excellent. You can pull up your transactions by whether or not they are captured, by whether they are settled. You can sort the transactions by date, by card type, etc. There's a lot of options in the gateway. But the point of what I wanted to show you is nothing was different. I haven't done anything different in Sage 100, but it talked seamlessly to the APS gateway. It processed a level 3 transaction. It did the capture just as part of the regular processing, and all the reporting is there. The one other thing I want to talk about now, and this probably is the end of the demonstration, but we talk about level 3. If you do business-to-business transactions a lot, you really need to look at getting qualified for level 3 processing. And with the APS integration, it's remarkably simple to set up. On the same credit card tab where we enabled credit card processing, we've got a box here right in the upper right quadrant for level 3 processing. When I check that box, all I have to do is fill in these commodity codes and the ship from postal code. The commodity code, the summary commodity code, and the item commodity code are standardized references that tell what kind of goods you are selling. So APS will help you look at the products that you sell and come up with a general category for your summary commodity codes and your detailed commodity codes, and they will assign that to your company or help you to assign it, and you set them up here along with your typical ship from postal code. And once you save that, that's it. From now on, it knows how to categorize the products that you're selling, and it knows where to find the detailed information, and it sends that detailed information to the APS gateway, which then passes it on to the appropriate processor. So that's kind of an overview. Keep in mind that the integration for credit cards happens in accounts receivable, in sales order, in the customer maintenance. You can add credit cards on the fly and make them one time only, or you can save those on the fly credit cards for later use for the same customer. You can also use cash receipts and apply payments from a credit card against existing open invoices, and even in that case, it will go out and find that open invoice and get the detailed information off of it and send that in for your level 3 qualification. Now that's my little quick review, and I think it's now time to pass it back to Patty or Adrian.
And Phil, we do have a question here before we move off of your screen. Thank you, Kirk, for your question. Kirk is wondering if you could show him the process for refunds through RMA.
Yes. Okay, so refunds, generally speaking, are going to go through a credit memo, correct? And so what happens, I'm sorry, I'm going into the wrong place. You'll do a credit memo, and you will do an apply to. So if you'd like, I mean, would you like for me to just quickly go through the process with a credit memo? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
All right, so let's do that. So I'm going to use that same customer, and I should have an open invoice here because I should have just created an open invoice. Oh, I didn't even pay any attention to the invoice that I just did. I guess that's it right there. Okay, so here's my invoice, and I'm going to give them a credit. Now, here's the tricky thing about giving a credit is if I'm going to make it exactly the same amount, which is what I'll attempt to do here. I'm going to make it, I'm going to use the same things. And as you know, say if it's an RMA, it pulls them in automatically. If it's if you're just entering a credit memo like I am doing, you actually have to enter the lines. As long as you do that apply to invoice and you have the same amount that you're giving back. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble picking my items here. Modesty panel is what I want. So here's what I sold them initially. Now, if it were an RMA, this would come up automatically. Now, since I used an apply to invoice, it knows the credit card, and it knows that this is what I did, and there's the authorization amount. So when I say submit the card, or when I accept it, and it's ready to submit the card, I think I may have lost something here. I think I just lost my my internet connection. What would happen? I'm sorry about that. I have to talk about it now. But what would happen is it looks at the amount and the prior transaction. It takes my prior card, and if the amounts match, in my case, it would have voided the transaction because the transaction had not yet settled. So if my credit memo was $89 and my original transaction was $89, it would either void it or it would refund it. If, on the other hand, it was just a partial, say I'm only giving them $45 back, it would leave the original transaction in place and it would do a credit against their card for the $45. Maybe it woke back up again if I get back in here again. No, I don't know what's happened. I've completely lost my screen here.
And that's okay. So we can go through a full presentation with anyone that might be interested. I'm going to include our contact information at the end. Just let us know. Feel free to send us an email or call us, and we'll be happy to coordinate a one-on-one presentation with you.
And Kirk just has an additional item here. So since the card is in the vault, we don't need to ask for the card number.
That's correct. You don't, in the case of doing a credit memo against an existing card, that's right. You don't have to, you've got the transaction ID. So if it's a full refund of the original amount, then it's just going to do a refund transaction, which ends up saving the customer money. If it is a partial refund or some other kind of credit, it will actually create a credit against the card. We try to limit credits against cards as much as possible, and that's the reason why we do it the way we do it. But you're right, you do not have to ask for the card information again. It remembers it.
And I think that's all the questions we have for you right now, Phil.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Patty or Bryce,
Adrian, do you want to go ahead and send the screen back to me?
Sure.
Then Patty's going to wrap us up.
Perfect. You should have control. There you go.
Thank you very much. We're definitely open to receiving more questions, and our time is very limited throughout the presentation, but I want to make sure that everyone understands the process that we typically follow with our with folks that are interested in our processing services. We basically start with an introduction call where we basically discover as much as we can about the account. Again, it's because of the fact that we know we are not perfect for everyone, so we want to make sure we understand your business process entirely, and then continue on the to the next step if we feel we would be a good fit. We then ask for your merchant statement after the discovery call, and we basically review the merchant statement, and once we have the results, we schedule a call with you where we provide you with analysis results. Our team goes through a brief PowerPoint presentation regarding our history, which you've already seen, but we try to go through who you're going to be talking with, what the results entail in detail, what to expect from us should you decide to allow us to become your processor. And then we provide you with the merchant application. Once we receive the merchant application back, we build your merchant account, basically set your account up on the Vault. We schedule installation time with you. Our project manager coordinates installation and training process with you. You can always involve, and we always try to involve your Sage reseller, again, because of the fact that we like to know as much about your current process and the way that you currently have Sage 100 set up before we install our DLL. Once the software is installed, we provide training at no additional charge. There are no maintenance fees whatsoever, and we continue to be there for you. I do have to let you know the person that is in charge of your account from day one, meaning your salesperson or your account representative, you will have access to them throughout the life of the account. And one of the things that they don't like me mentioning too much, but I'm going to corner them right now and say it anyway, our services are available to you 24/7, 365 days a year. You can call us at any time zone. And if you're not able to get a hold of someone, I can always give you my contact information, and I'm happy to walk you over to the person that you need to speak with. Adrian, would you mind switching to the next slide? Or Bryce? Yeah, thank you. So the one thing we do offer is take the challenge. There is no commitment, nothing at all. All you have to do is provide us with a merchant statement if you're currently processing with Sage Payment Solutions. If you're processing with any other processor, we require a minimum of 2 of your most current merchant statements. We will analyze them for you at absolutely no charge. If we cannot beat or match your current processor's rates, we will hand you a $500 check. No questions asked. So there's really no reason for you to look around and find out more about the processors that are out there. Keep in mind the questions that we indicated throughout the PowerPoint. They're very important questions. You're going to want to know the answers to these questions, and we're definitely happy to help. So my contact information is on there, my email address, and we look forward to hearing from everyone. We're happy to answer any of your questions. And with that, Bryce, Phil, Adrian, did you have any closing comments?
Yeah, Patty, we do have one question here. About how long does it take to get up and running on your solution once you move forward?
I can address that. This is Bryce. So once we actually have the merchant application and your statements and the voided check where you want the batches to be deposited into, depending on the size of your company, meaning the transactional volume, it literally can take 1 day up to four business days. Once we have the file built, obviously we have to schedule the install. So whether that's just you as an end user, or if you want your reseller, if your Sage reseller of record wants to be involved, the installation and implementation time, Phil can back me up on this, but it literally takes 20 to 30 minutes. You guys saw how easy it is to set up the account. So usually anywhere from 2 to 5 business days is the complete turnaround to having you up and running.
And can you give us an example of a customer success story, how much money that a particular customer has saved using your solution?
Sure. So there's a company out of Kansas. They're an oil drilling manufacturer. They manufacture the tips for the shale drills that go down and bring up the crude oil. So they sell very large single transaction items, $10,000 to $100,000 per transaction, and it's B2B. So they're a level 3 client of ours. And they switched a few months ago to our level 3 processing. They actually were a PCCharge end user at the time, and we're saving them over $10,000 a month right now on the interchange. So the numbers came out to about $112,000 was the estimated savings, but actually now that we've had a couple months of data to look at, looks like it's going to be closer to $125,000 a year in savings.
And were they using the Sage 100 system, did you say?
Yes, yeah, they're a Sage 100 client. They were using PCCharge, integrated on version 4.4, I believe, and they upgraded to 2015 with their reseller and implemented our solution with it.
And I'm not seeing any. Oh, go ahead. Right.
I was just going to say the nice thing about that particular client was the upgrade that they paid for Sage 100 cost them about half. They did have some custom modifications, you know, not regarding APS, but other third-party enhancements that they've purchased throughout the years. And the upgrade cost them about half of what we were saving them on an annual basis. So it was definitely a big win for them.
This is Phil, and I'd like to add one thing, and that is that anytime you're installing something in your Sage 100 ERP system, you probably want to get your reseller, your Sage partner involved. The installation is about as easy as installations get. It's a very, very simple process. We have step-by-step instructions that are provided. One thing that can make it occasionally longer than 30 minutes is if you have tons and tons of cards in a Sage Payment Solutions Vault or in your Sage 100 system. It takes a little while to encrypt, to unencrypt, encrypt, and re-encrypt and pass up to the vault. So it can sometimes take longer than 30 minutes to do that conversion from one to the other. Sometimes as long as an hour or more. Just FYI.
And I just wanted to point out, if I may, we have a poll up on your screen. If you could just take a minute to answer that poll. Are you interested in learning more? That'll just give us an idea how we did on this webinar. So I see 44% of you have voted. And we'll wait for another minute or so. We are a minute over the hour. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And we're hoping to get off to our weekend, I'm sure, in the next few hours. So we really, really appreciate everyone's time. I see 56% have voted. Can we get to 100? So Patty and team, thank you so much for your very comprehensive presentation today about credit card processing. There are so many opportunities to save in this area, and just think of all the things you can reinvest in with those savings to make your company even more efficient.
Absolutely, Adrian. Thank you so much for coordinating this for us, and thanks everyone for joining us. We hope the presentation was informative and helpful. We're going to go ahead and follow up with an email providing you with the 10 questions to ask a credit card processor when you're getting ready to switch. And we look forward to hearing from every single one of you with any questions or concerns. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
All righty, Patty. Hey, thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.